Hey guys, welcome back to the channel by ByMWu. I'm ByMWu, aka Marianne, and in today's video we have episode 24 of the knitting podcast that we host here. It's a little space on the internet where we talk about things crafty, primarily knitting. However, recently I did start sewing, so sometimes I throw in some sewing things. I hope that's okay. But it's been a few weeks since I've sat down and filmed, so I have a lot to share with you guys. I hope you have all been doing well. I admit it's been hard to sit down and film recently just because I've been so busy enjoying the beautiful weather outside. It is full-fledged spring here, which is sometimes hard to come by in Eastern Ontario because either you go from winter straight into summer or you have like a couple days of spring. And this year we're getting like a good couple days. So I've been spending a lot of time outside, just enjoying the weather. I've started gardening. If you want to follow me along for that journey, I post sometimes updates on Instagram. So far, nothing really has popped up. But it feels really good to be back, and thank goodness for the long spring days because I'm actually feeling this quite late in the afternoon. It's like almost 6 p.m. here, and I've had dinner already. The light outside is so beautiful. I hope it lasts for the duration of this video. I have still been knitting in my off time in between me being inside and outside, and so I have stuff to share. We have 2 finished objects, I think 2 new cast-ons that didn't exist previously. I have purchased a bunch of yarn because there was a Sunday Fabric Co collection release a couple weeks ago, which when that yarn comes in, I'll share it then. And I did buy a bunch of Brooklyn tweed when the announcement of their yarn discontinuation happened because I've always wanted to try it and I really wanted to get my hands on some colors. Again, I don't think I'm really gonna share stash stuff in this episode at least. I'll probably share those yarns closer to when I'm starting to make projects with them. But that being said, we still have a lot to get through, so I'm gonna stop yapping about the intro stuff and we'll just jump in. As always, I'll quickly talk about what I'm wearing today. I'm actually wearing the exact sweater that I said I would in my last podcast episode, and this is the Elisabeth Blouse by Petite Knit. I won't talk about this too much because I did just finish it in that last episode, and so I talked about it a bunch there. So if you want to hear more about my thoughts and my process, go check out that episode. However, I did want to say that I've officially blocked it, so it is now in its final form, and here it is. I do note that there's like, you might not be able to see it, but 2 like crease lines here. It was sitting folded on my shelf prior to wearing. So I was going to steam it out, but I was also like, this is the reality of wearing sweaters sometimes. So I'm just gonna leave that in as part of like, this is reality. I guess very quickly in summary, this is a Petite Knit pullover raglan construction sweater that has collared details as well as like this little V at the front. My version is made in the recommended yarn, which is Cardiff Cashmere Classic in the color Fumo, which is just a dark gray. And I basically followed the pattern to exactly as specified. The only modification I made was that I think I made every sleeve, both sleeves, like a smidge longer. And I don't even count that really as a modification. It was kind of an error on my part. I just did a couple extra rows. Nothing but good things to say about the pattern in terms of construction and process. My only comment I have about post blocking is that I've noticed that my collar fits very floppy. You can kind of see it here. It fits very open. I personally think I would like it better if it could sit like this, or like even a little bit more like structured like so. But I guess because the cashmere is so soft and maybe the way I blocked it, it tends to like want to flop out a little bit more like this, which is not the end of the world, but I do notice that it's not sitting exactly how I would have liked. Sometimes that happens. I don't know if this is a me specific problem or if other people who have made this garment had this problem before. And I don't know if it would be fixed if I was to use a yarn with more structure. The cashmere is quite soft, and so I'm not terribly surprised, and maybe I'll try blocking it in the future, like more close, so it has like a little bit more shape when it's blocked. But all in all, I really like this sweater. I hope to wear it a couple more times before it gets too warm, but I suppose we will see because I think the next week is gonna be like 26 degrees Celsius or something, which maybe I can squeeze it in the morning when it's colder and then kind of take it off in the afternoon when it gets warmer. I do recommend this pattern if you are looking for something in a very like classic pullover collared V-neck sweater shape, but yeah, keep in mind about the yarn, or maybe look at some more of the Ravelry project pages to see if they have similar problems. I don't think I've ever noticed it, but to be honest, I never paid attention prior to wearing it. So maybe it's just a me thing. Hopefully it's not. But otherwise, yeah, this is the Elisabeth Blouse. It is a lovely sweater. Okay, moving on to finished objects. I have 2 finished objects to share. One of them was in the last episode, so we'll do that one first. And that is the Knitty Committee top by, what's her name? Oh my God, Lily Kate France. She is known as Lily Kate Makes on Instagram, and this was a test knit for her. This is a beautiful, very plain, long sleeve sweater, I guess top, that she made a test knit call a couple months ago almost now. And at the time, I wasn't really looking for test knits, but in the back of my mind, I've been wanting to make like a very form-fitting, just classic long sleeve for ages. And so when she announced this test call, I was like, this is gonna fit that perfectly. So I applied, I got it, I have now made it, and I've worn it a bunch, and I really, really do enjoy it. Quickly about the pattern before I get into the yarn and just some other thoughts. So the pattern is a set-in sleeve construction. You start in the back, you start the back yoke first, and then you pick up the shoulders, you do the front until about both the back and the front are ready to split for sleeves. You then join in the round, knit in the round all the way down, do the sleeves with a bunch of decreases, and voila, you have a top. This pattern actually has multiple variations to it. The pattern gives you options to do the long sleeve, a short sleeve, as well as a puff sleeve. So it's a very versatile pattern. And then another fun feature of it is that she gives you options to do fancy or kind of very classic ribbing. I went with the fancy option. Can you see that there? It's kind of got some 2x2 ribbing mixed with garter stitch, mixed with 1x1 ribbing, and I think it gives the garment just a little extra pizzazz that's really, really attractive. And then she also has like a little bit of that in the collar as well as on the body ribbing. So overall, this is just a great fingering weight staple shirt. I keep wanting to call it a sweater, but it's kind of a top. And I really wanted to make a kind of top that wasn't a sweater because I'm someone who gets cold very easily. So if I'm just wearing like a plain long sleeve that's like cotton, typically that won't be enough for me. I'll get cold, so I'll need to put a sweater on top. But then in the transition season right now where we're in, it's like too hot for a sweater. So I figured if I made a long sleeve with wool, it'd be like those two had a baby, like a long sleeve plain cotton tee, not a tee, is that a tee? A long sleeve cotton tee, a long sleeve shirt had a baby with like a sweater, that would be this. And it's met all my expectations. It is warm without being too hot. It is still breathable and it fits beautifully. So I'll insert some photos of me wearing it here. It does have waist shaping, so it is zero ease, and I honestly can't stop raving about it. It is beautiful, it fits really well. I really like the color of the yarn that I chose. I was originally gonna do a blue color, but then the pink caught my eye in the yarn store, so I went with that. Speaking of yarn, this is made in Sandnes Garn. Is it called like Babyull Lanett? Definitely butchering that, but it's a fingering weight superwash yarn. I figured it would be perfect for this pattern because the meterage of that yarn matched the recommended yarn in the pattern, and it was about, I think, 167 meters for 50 grams, something along the lines. So a little heavier than their Sandnes Garn Sunday fingering weight, but it has beautiful stitch definition, and it's kind of got this like shiny look, which I think is something that superwash tends to do. I interestingly enough made this garment on metal needles, which is not something that I typically use. I usually use bamboo. So that kind of, along with the superwash, made this garment like fly off the needles. I did have to get into the rhythm of kind of knitting with like slippery yarn and slippery needles. But all in all, I'm really happy with how it turned out, and I would definitely recommend. People in the test knit group have been making a bunch of beautiful colors, and it seems to fit really well on a whole bunch of different body shapes. So I'm really excited for this to be released into the world. Maybe it already is by the time I posted it. Maybe not, because the test knit ends mid this week as of filming. And actually, I think the pattern might be out before I post this. So if it is, go check it out if you're interested. It's a lovely staple garment. Something that I would definitely make more of if I didn't have a bajillion and one plans. I'm just gonna quickly check my notes to see if I had anything else to say. I'll add in that I made size 1. And one thing I would change about this is that I would lengthen it a tiny bit. I ended up cropping it to the cropped version in the pattern. You can crop it or make a standard length. I don't really have a lot of crop shirts, so I thought it would be nice for high-waisted, but it's just a little too cropped for my personal preference. I like wearing my shirts tucked into my high-waisted pants as opposed to just like grazing the top of my jeans or whatnot. So I would go back and add a couple more centimeters. I could do it. I actually have extra yarn. I don't think I will, but that is just one thing that I would change. Not an error or anything on the pattern, just a personal preference. Oh, last thing that's kind of a fun little tidbit that she includes in the pattern, which is not, I guess, a feature of the pattern itself, but it's a cool kind of tip that I definitely think I want to take away moving forward as I make other garments, and that is doing ribbing inside out. Her rationale for it is that apparently as people rib, generally the opposite side is a little cleaner. I don't really know the rationale for that. I can say that it is true for me. Something about maybe the way you tension it, I'm not sure. So she actually has you do ribbing inside out so that you have the wrong side on the outside, which is the nice side. A very small tip that like might make or break a difference on like the cleanliness of like your ribbing. It is a little tricky to get started because you do have to kind of turn your work and do a short row to start it so you can start working it like inside out. And if you choose to work on your project right side out, but the ribbing inside out, you can get a little bit of like tension, not tension error, but like friction between like how you manage your project from like the stitches that you're working on. You can easily fix that by just turning the whole garment inside out as you're working on it. I don't know if I will use it for every garment moving forward as I'm doing ribbing, but definitely something to keep in mind if you want a little bit of like a cleaner look, because I did notice for mine, it did make my ribbing just ever so slightly crisper. The next garment that I have for you guys is one that I talked about in the last episode in concept. I think I showed the yarn and I talked about maybe making this one or the adult cotton candy tee by, I believe it's Kelly Reedley or something along that line. I ended up doing the plain version. I've been calling this my spring circular because it's my circular yoke top that I made this spring. This is the finished object. I absolutely adore it. If you guys know me, you know I love circular yoke. It's probably my favorite construction, or at least one of my like top 2 or 3. I really like working in the round, so circular yoke as well as saddle shoulder like done in the round are probably my 2 favorites. Prior to applying for the last project's test knit, I, like I said, wanted to make just like a woolish long sleeve, and so my idea was originally to make the circular yoke. I do like the fit of the last one that I showed you with it being set in sleeve and just very, very classic shaped. However, I had already purchased the yarn, so I went ahead and I made my circular yoke top. This was following the Strange Brew pattern by TinCanKnits, which is a pattern that I've used before for my Taylor Swift sweater, and I've talked about it before as well. It's basically a catch-all pattern where the main premise of it is actually to help you design your own color work circular yoke sweater. However, both the projects that I've made with it have just been plain stockinette, but it's a pattern that TinCanKnits produced where it has 3 different yarn weight options. So it has fingering, DK, worsted, and it has sizes from like newborn babies to like extra large men's or something like that, like all the ranges in between. And it features extra elements in terms of introducing the concept of color work and how to incorporate your specific color work design that you want to create into that circular yoke sweater. I can't speak on behalf of how good the color work yoke stuff is because I've never used it, but I do adore this pattern and the versatility of it because it has so many different size ranges. I believe I made both of my garments in an adult small. My Taylor Swift circular yoke sweater was a fingering weight version, and then for this one I did a DK weight. It's knit in Holst Garn Coast, which is their wool cotton blend. I believe Holst Garn is most known for their Super Soft, which is their 100% wool version. I recently fell in love with Holst Garn and picked up a bunch of their yarn, and so I thought like a blue marled kind of garment would look really nice. And so this is Coast Sapphire mixed with Coast River. I believe River is the lighter blue and Sapphire is the darker blue. And knit together, it makes this really beautiful marled blue look. Reminds me of blue jeans and blue spring skies, and it's just so much fun. The Holst Garn Coast is, I believe, I want to say like a 45% cotton, 55% wool blend, something along the lines, almost 50-50, but not quite. So it is more of a mixed blend, or is it more kind of even blend of wool and cotton than Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino, which I've also used and do enjoy as well. I do think I like the higher wool percentage in the Holst Garn Coast a little bit more. I think it just gives the garment a little bit more of like the wool features. Obviously it has a little bit more wool, so that makes sense. Knitting it up too is so beautiful. It's still got a little bit of elasticity from the wool, whereas I do find sometimes the Cotton Merino from Knitting for Olive doesn't have as much stretch because it has a higher cotton percentage. So that does make sense too. I don't know why I'm now comparing this to, but if you have used Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino, I'm trying to, I guess, per perspective, what this one feels like. It's super soft in the cake of yarn, which it comes in these really cute 50-gram cakes. I don't know why, something about them spun into the cake shape makes it so much more cuter in my mind. And it comes in a bajillion colors. The color selection is gorgeous. I really wanted to get like a maroony purple one. But the only downside to the Holst Garn Coast that I've personally found is that it's really hard to get, at least in Canada. I find that their Super Soft is pretty readily available, but I have a hard time finding Coast. The only place that has like a decent selection that's kind of local to me, which isn't even, it's still 4.5 hours away, is ByMWu Knit in Toronto. And I don't regularly go to that shop. I just know that it's there. I do find that their prices are always a little bit higher than elsewhere, so I don't tend to shop there that much. While I haven't ordered directly from Holst Garn yet, that would be my best bet, I think, if I was to want to buy more Holst Garn Coast, especially in the colors that I want. So that's the yarn. I do really love it. I love the way that it bloomed. I actually recalled right now that I didn't swatch for this. I kind of just YOLO knit it, and thankfully it fits very well. I actually think I will change into this because I am sweating in this one. So I will be right back. And this is how she looks. I think circular yokes fit me really well. I do know some people have issues with it, especially if they have a larger bust, because typically circular yokes are like evenly distributed in terms of how the increases happen. So sometimes there's not enough fabric to accommodate a larger chest comparatively to the back, or sometimes there's a lot of extra fabric in the back. I personally don't have a very large bust, so I don't really have that as an issue, but definitely something to consider if I rave about circular yoke, but you find that it doesn't work well for you. Sometimes different constructions fit differently. There are some modifications that I think you can do. You can kind of change the split sleeving section so that you have a little bit more fabric in the front. Never tried it, but there are definitely resources out there if you are interested in trying circular yoke and haven't, but are concerned about maybe fabric location wise. But I really enjoy it. I've had great success with all of my circular yokes. It's such a pleasant knitting experience too, because basically besides the short row shaping, it's all in the round. You cast on in the round, you knit in the round, the sleeves are in the round. I love it. It's my favorite kind of knitting by far. I don't have too much more to say about this because I've talked about the Strange Brew pattern before and I cannot recommend it enough. I will note again, because I think I've said this in the past, is that it is a pattern that's a little bit more expensive than some other ones out there. Whoops. Because it has so much information in it, I think they do charge a little bit more. I do think it's worth it, but that's just something to keep in mind if you are going in. It's quite a big pattern. It has a lot of pages. Oh, and it also teaches you how to make a sweater bottom up or top down, depending on what your preference is. I like doing top down, again, for the reasons that I said earlier, but if you like doing bottom up, that's definitely included in the pattern as well. So it's a very, very comprehensive circular yoke pattern. And definitely one day I do want to try to do a circular yoke colorwork sweater, and I probably will use that pattern as well. So I think it's a great pattern. I would highly recommend it. It's also great if you just want the option to make a bunch of different like size garments for gift knitting or something like that, because sometimes patterns only come in like baby or children's or adult women's, adult men, and that distribution definitely is a lot more money than if you just buy this one pattern. So I highly recommend it. Definitely check it out if you're looking for a good staple circular yoke pattern. I'll make 2 more comments about this one. One of them is, if you watched my last podcast episode, you know that I was toying with the idea of either making this garment or the cotton candy tee by, like I said, I think the designer's name is Kelly Reedy or Reedley, something along that line, which is also a circular yoke top, but it has increases along the bottom to make kind of more of like a pufflum shape, ruffle shape. I don't know how to describe it now without calling a peplum top, but it's not really a peplum. Actually, I don't really know what defines a peplum top. Maybe it is. But I thought about hacking this garment into like one of similar looking garment. That was a really weird sentence. I thought about hacking this garment into one that had that kind of like extra fabric on the bottom. Excuse me. But I ended up not, because when I was knitting, I thought I would run out of yarn. Turns out I actually would have had plenty. I ended up only using, I think in total, 2 and a bit cakes of each color. So about 4.5 cakes of the Holst Garn Coast in total. I definitely had extra if I wanted to do that option, but that's okay. I do still really like just the plain top that I have now. And then there's some other thing that I wanted to talk about. Oh, the only change. So I followed the pattern to a T. The only change that I made between this one and the pattern slash, actually, that's not even true, because the pattern tells you to increase like using a style that you like. It doesn't actually specify what type of increase you should do. In my Taylor Swift sweater, I did the standard make one right increases, as I was just doing increases all around. For this one, I used a different increase that I can't remember the name, but it's one that I learned from my Matcha Jumper. I'll insert the acronym on the screen, but it's supposed to make increases a little bit more invisible, and I think it worked out really well. You can't see the twisted like leg that you usually get when you use the make one left or make one right. And I really like it. Definitely a nice addition in terms of making a garment that is like the same but slightly different. Similarly to the Knitty Committee top, I think I'm gonna get a ton of wear out of it over the springtime because it's just the perfect breathability and thickness for me. I like long sleeves. I'm not a short sleeve person. I just am afraid of the cold. And so I'd rather be extra warm than cold. And I think that shows off. But the cool thing about knitting is that you can knit things that seem a little bit more springy in wool or other warmer fibers that fit your need perfectly. So I'm really happy about that. So yeah, this is the spring circular based off the Strange Brew pattern. Definitely check that out if you want a staple pattern at all. This sounds like an ad, but I genuinely just really like that pattern. This is not paid for by any means. Alrighty, those are my 2 finished objects knitting wise. We'll talk about finished objects sewing wise at the end, just in case some people don't want to hear about that. I totally get that this is a very knitting focused channel. So if you want to skip all my sewing stuff at the end, by all means. But we'll move on to whips for the time being. And I have 3. I don't have notes on my last 2, so we're just gonna wing it. I have one that I've been carrying forward for a while, a whole bunch of them that are on hold that I won't talk about, as well as 2 new ones that I casted on between the last episode and this episode. We will talk about the one that's been a carry forward one first because it's not a huge update. It's more so just like, this still exists and I've made a couple inches of progress. That is my Fika pullover by Sari Nordland. The story behind this one is actually that it's a sweater for my husband that I offered to make him after I finished the halibut sweater. When I finished the halibut sweater for Christmas, I really wanted to cast on another one for him, but I definitely wanted to make a sweater that he wanted. So I had asked him if he wanted to look on Ravelry and see if he wanted anything. He had told me previously that he wanted like a kind of creamy whitish cable knit sweater, but Ryan has a very specific style of like clothing that he likes that don't always match what I like. So I was like, you know what, you just go on Ravelry, you find what you like, and I'll see if it's like a reasonable yarn slash like project that I would want to work on, and we'll go from there. So we looked together at a whole bunch of different cabled sweaters, and he saw this one, and this was the one that like lit up his eyes, and he was like, I really like that one. So I was like, okay. It is technically, I think, a female sweater, but I'm just making a bigger size, and I'm having it try it on occasionally just to make sure that it fits the broadness of his shoulders. But it is, like I said, an all over cable knit worsted weight sweater. Its main feature is that it has cables twisting in opposite direction, and it increases the sizing of the cables from the collar to the base of the body. So I'm pretty much done the yoke. I have a couple more rows before I split for sleeves, and I think it's looking very cute right now. You might be wondering, Marianne, why do you have a bunch of stitch markers on the collar? That is because I really like the look of the funnel neck collar, but he kind of likes the folded collar. They start out the same, you just have to fold the collar down if you're making the folded collar one. So I figured I would make the whole sweater first, and then we could decide at the end. I could just fold that as needed. So in order to do that evenly later, I just placed a bunch of stitch markers all around because I'm really bad at folding collars. I always fold them diagonally if I don't have stitch markers telling me like this matches with this one. So that's why I have a bunch of stitch markers on my neck, or not my neck, but on my pullover's neck. I have been making very slow progress with this one because I do find that the yarn is very hard to work with. I don't know if it's a combination of the yarn itself being a very dry wool yarn, which I'll talk about the yarn in a really brief moment, or the fact that it's on 4mm needles, which I feel like is pretty small for the cabling. Regardless of the fact, I can only do a couple rows at a time because I find it kind of difficult. On top of that, it is a lot of stitches. I think I'm making size 3. So it's way more stitches than I usually have on a garment, because usually my smaller sizes have smaller stitches, or fewer stitches, excuse me. And so I actually have to use 2 cables of my interchangeable set, which I love my C-knit needles. But the one complaint that I have is that the connection piece between 2 cables, if you want to make like an extra long one, is kind of this piece that looks like this. I don't know if you can see that at all, but it's this section here, and it's the same thickness as the base of the needles. So if you have like stitches that are kind of on the smaller side or tighter side, it does make it hard to like easily pass it through. It's not as fluid as just the plain plastic. And so that, coupled with the thicker yarn and the cabling, I think just makes this project a little bit harder on the hands. So it's a slowly moving project that I don't think will get anywhere, even if I did finish it like anytime soon. So I'm just taking my time and hope to get it done before the fall season at the end of the year so he can wear it in the fall and winter time. I will quickly talk about the yarn. So I am using the Rerum Natura's Gilliatt, something along that line. This is in their color Poivre Blanc, which is a beautiful kind of like off-tone white. It's got a little bit of like brownish in it. It is a beautiful yarn. Like I said earlier, worsted weight, you get 250 meters for 100 grams. It does recommend 4 to 5mm needles, so on the smaller side for, I guess, a denser cable knit, it's going to be a really lovely wool sweater. I talked about this a lot, I think, in the last podcast when I showed this, maybe the one before, but this yarn is very dry. I believe the Rerum Natura has a bunch of like, I was going to say like half woolen spun, but I don't think that's fully the right term. Like partly woolen spun yarn, and this I think is that. It's kind of like fluffier than the traditional worsted spun yarn. Not worsted weight, but worsted spun. This is worsted weight though, which gives it this kind of like lighter, fluffier look. When you block it, it blooms really nicely. So I am really excited to bloom this, especially given all of the cables here. It's a lovely yarn, besides the fact that it's a little like tougher on the hands, at least I find personally. They do have a sport weight version, I believe. I don't remember the name of it, but it's also a similarly like partly woolen spun-esque inspired, maybe not inspired. I don't actually know what the methodology they use to make this specific yarn, because it's not quite woolen spun the same way that I have seen traditional woolen spun, but it's definitely like a lighter twist than like a traditional worsted spun yarn. Anywho, lovely yarn, comes in a bunch of beautiful colors. This one is just like a really great natural colored one. I want to mention that this is not an itchy yarn, at least I don't find it very itchy, and Ryan is quite sensitive, and while he hasn't worn it yet, I had him like rough this up against his neck, and he doesn't think it's itchy at all either, and I think it will soften more as you block it and wear it a little bit more. It also is a very lovely yarn for split splicing. So my favorite way to actually join skeins into project is by folding the tail end of it on itself and then stitching a couple stitches on opposite yarns of the loop, if that makes any sense, so that you have like a little loop so that you can loop in the other yarn. I don't know if that's making any sense. I hope it is. But for more rustic yarns or ones that have a little bit more texture, my favorite way to join yarns is split splicing. And if you're not familiar with that, that's basically joining two ends of the yarn together using friction or felting it basically. You can basically split the yarn ends up so that you have a little bit more frayed material, and then with a little bit of water and the friction of your hands or the heat of your hands, you can felt them together to basically make a continuous yarn. That's really lovely, so you don't have to weave in ends, and it works great for this yarn. It works great for Holst Garn Super Soft. I've had great success with that. Anything that has a little bit more toothy texture works great for split splicing. I'll continue to chug along as I make it. I want to know if this looks very daunting to you. It's actually a quite straightforward pattern. If you have done any kind of cabling in the past, you can do this. It really is just crossing over and increasing every once in a while. Again, circular yoke, you know this girl loves that. So this is hitting all the spots when I want a little bit of brain engagement that's not just stockinette. This next one is a new project, but it's a pattern that I've done before, so it's not like a new thing. I love that pattern, hence why I'm making another one. But actually, very fun sneak peek. I made this bag. We'll talk about that more at the end, but this is holding this project. This is a project that I hadn't started the last time, but I've been thinking about for a very long time. I can't recall if I mentioned it. I think I might have mentioned it once or twice in the past about wanting to make it, but it is yet another matcha jumper. If you guys know, I had the fortunate situation of test knitting the matcha jumper for Ines a couple months ago. I can't even remember. I guess it was the beginning of this year. Time is flying. I think it was in the month of like February to March is when I test knitted that. And I fell in love with that construction and that garment and the yarn and the pattern and just everything about it. That the moment I cast it off my test knit, I knew I wanted to make another one. I actually bought yarn to make another one in like a greeny one, similar to Ines's sample, not her original like matcha color green one, but the darker version that she made. Haven't cast that on yet, but then someone in the test knit group made this beautiful like berry reddish dark purple one that I like, it just took over my mind. So I bought the yarn and cast it on because I really wanted something of the similar color. The test knitter, I can't remember her name, but the one that she made, she actually used a slightly lighter main thread, and I really like the marled coloring. I actually wanted to get a very similar colored lighter yarn from Holst Garn, but I was like, I don't know if I should ship it from Denmark, I believe is where they're based, just yet. I didn't need anything else, and so I ended up doing a Knitting for Olive order and ordered Bordeaux, which was the mohair that she used, the test knitter used. And so I just used Bordeaux in both the merino and soft silk mohair to make this one. This has been a super wonderful pattern. It was a lovely knit the first time, and it's an even more wonderful knit the second time. This is the same yarn combination that I used for the test knit, so I didn't swatch, I just kind of went with it, which in retrospect might have messed me up, as you'll find out in my next work in progress, because I am also not, I I swatched for that one, but my gauge is different despite using the same yarn and same needles as like a project that I've made in the past. We can talk about that more later. But this is the Matcha Jumper. I adore it. If you have been watching the podcast, you know I made a brown version that I've been calling my Hojicha version. That was the test knit one that I made. Also made it in Knitting for Olive, Merino, held with Knitting for Olive, soft silk mohair. The colors that I used last time was bark. This sweater is everything I want in a sweater that I didn't even know. I'm not typically a crop sweater, like big sleeve sweater person, but something about this Matcha Jumper just hits all the right spots. It's a beautifully classic saddle shoulder sweater that is just super clean, all stockinette, has beautiful twisted rib on the collar as well as the edges of the sleeves and the body. It has straight sleeves, which is not usually something that I like, but I love the way it fits, and it's ever so slightly boxy in the body, but it fits wonderfully exactly where it needs to be on the shoulders, and it's just perfection. I was actually wearing that sweater earlier today for the Mother's Day brunch that I went to with my mother-in-law, and it's just, every time I put it on, I just feel so good. So I knew I wanted another one in this color and then another one in the green, so I probably will make another one in the future, but it's just a great knit. It is very simple in terms of a garment, as in it's all stockinette and it's saddle shoulder, but the details that Ines has included in terms of making sure that the shoulders fit properly and the way that she's cropped it is just perfection. It really truly is. And so this has been a great knit. The wonderful thing about this one is that it's just like circular yoke in the sense that it's all knit in the round. You do increases on either side of your shoulder seams to get the structure in the front and the back. So it's a really mindless knit, all things considering. It's super addictive, and the way that she has created the repeating pattern, not pattern, but just like the increasing way, is basically very repetitive, and so you can get in the flow. And I honestly flew through this. I think I casted it on last Monday, and I've been working on it here and there, but I got the bulk of this yoke done probably after 3 days of knitting. And mind you, I was also busy doing my job, my day job, as well as like gardening and stuff outside. So this flies off the needles. I don't know why it's so addictive, but it truly is, and I love it. So love this color. It's not showing up as bright as it can sometimes. It's quite a deep maroony, winey color, but in the bright light, it goes a little bit more like pinky, purpley magenta. It has like a little bit like a magenta undertone. It's beautiful. Not typically what you would think is a spring color, but I love it nonetheless. And while I might not be able to wear it a ton when I'm done, I'm so excited to wear it once it gets cold enough to wear it. I don't know, just something about it. It's just so good. It's truly so wonderful. And I'm not afraid to do repeat patterns. If I like a garment, I will make another one. So I have a handful that I've made a couple times, and I have a handful that I have plans to make more. And I think that says something about a pattern when like someone's willing to make multiples of it, because there are some patterns out there that are beautiful, but you only need one, you know? But then there's other ones that are just so staple that you could wear with anything, like this with jeans, this with a skirt. Truly amazing. That was very rambly, I feel like, on my end. I don't have any notes that I can reference right now. That is the Matcha Jumper second version. I have nothing but good things to say. Alrighty, the very last work in progress that I have to share with you guys is my newest cast on. And it's a dress, it's a test knit, and it's also for Ines. And it is the girl dress. If you have seen on Ines's Instagram, she has this show-stopping, backless, flowy dress, and it's beautiful. It's her like more sophisticated silk dress comparatively to the Miletus dress, which is a beautiful dress in and of itself. I think it just leans a little bit more casual comparatively. I knit the Miletus dress as a test knit for Ines last summer, and it was a beautiful experience. It was full of up and downs. If you guys know, you know. But when she posted this one, I was like, I have to. Something about knitting a dress, you just feel so accomplished. And I love Ines's patterns. I love working with her. I'm so thankful that she has trusted me again to knit yet another test knit for her. I also, although I really like that she hosts them on Slack. I've tested a bunch of things now And every designer does them differently. Some people host them on Slack, some people host them on Google Docs, some people host them on Instagram. They all have pros and cons, but my favorite definitely is Slack. I think it's just the most clean in terms of the way I like to use that platform. Sometimes I find Instagram, especially when it's like 20 people or more in a DM chat, it gets a little chaotic sometimes. But nevertheless, I am making a blue dress. I don't have much to show for it right now. I only have one triangle done. Basically, this pattern is a very flowy 2 triangle piece dress on the top. It has a pretty plunging V, a completely open back basically, minus 2 straps, and then an A-line skirt, I think. I don't know if A-line is the right term, but it's kind of like a nice flowy skirt. While I'm not a super like revealing black person, she has included a mod for this dress where you can kind of have the same V-neck on the back as well. So I will be making that modification, but I have only had the opportunity to do one of the kind of chest, oh, it blends in, bodice pieces. And I'm excited to keep knitting. It's been a wonderful experience knitting wise. It's been a little bit of an experience setting up wise. And what I mean by that is what I was talking about earlier. So I made the Middle-East dress last year, as I noted earlier, and that dress has a recommended gauge of 22 stitches per 10 centimeters by X number of rows, I can't remember. And when I knit that one last year, I couldn't hit 22, sorry, did I say 22? I meant 25. 25 stitches, I couldn't hit it. I could either get 26 or 24. So through the discussion with Ines at the time, she was like going smaller because silk can stretch, and it worked out fine. I ended up knitting my Middle-East dress on 2.75 millimeter needles. When this dress came along and I was looking at the stitch gauge for it, it was 26. So I was like, I'll just use the 2.75 millimeter needles. I was still good. I still swatched because I wanted to make sure this is a test knit after all, and I want to do my due diligence. But I was getting a way higher stitch number count. I think I was getting like 29 stitches or something like that per pre-block. Post-block, I think that would go down to like 28, 27.5-ish. So I was like, what is happening? Like, it hasn't been that long since I knit it. I guess tension changes. And someone in the group mentioned that sometimes it also changes depending on the yarn type that you're using. If you've been knitting with a lot of like natural, very elastic fibers like wool, that can change your stitch gauge relative to doing something more plant-based or less tensiony, because I know silk is not technically plant-based, but it does technically, in my opinion, fall into more of those characteristics where it doesn't have as much elasticity. It's a little bit more frictiony. I ended up swatching again on 3 millimeter needles, and I was getting around like 26 and a half. I went with that. I ended up doing this on the 3 millimeter needles. I just finished this piece and blocked it. I'm still sitting around at like 26.5-ish. So I think we're okay. It was just one of those experiences I was like, oh my gosh, I guess I should swatch for every project, because even when I knit something like that's supposed to be the same, because both the Middle-East dress and this dress, the girl dress, use Knitting for Olive pure silk, I for some reason got different gauges. I guess even humans are inconsistent sometimes. So that was that experience. I am feeling good about it now that I have the first bodice piece, and I can make 3 more basically of the same thing. And then once I'm in the round, I'm sure it'll be fine. So yeah, it's beautiful. Knitting for Olive pure silk is a gorgeous fabric when it blocks out. It is a little like stiff, and I find it a little frictiony and a little splitty when you're knitting with it, but oh my gosh, the fabric is so drapey. It's so beautiful. As I said earlier, this is Knitting for Olive pure silk. It is the recommended yarn for this pattern. I'll throw in that Knitting for Olive kindly gave me a 50% off coupon to order the yarn for this test knit. I don't think I've ever disclosed that before. I don't typically get a lot of like coupons or anything. Most of the time I buy yarn myself for myself. The only other time that I think I definitely got a coupon that I didn't mention, or I might not have mentioned, is for the Middle-East dress. I think I got a 30% off coupon for that yarn, as for transparency purposes. But yeah, I otherwise would have purchased it on my own. It's a beautiful yarn. I love this yarn so much. This is Deep Petroleum Blue. It's a gorgeous deep blue. I love it. I do find that the knitting for Olive Pure Silk, it doesn't have as large of a color selection as the Merino does, or the Soft Silk Mohair, or even the Cotton Merino. The Merino definitely has the biggest color selection. Cotton Merino has a fair bit less, but it does have more than the Pure Silk. Personally, I was looking to make a more classic looking color, so either blue, green, or black. Given that my Miletus dress was green, I was between black and blue, and I felt like this blue was really pretty. So I think this was the color that the sample was knit in. I'm not 100% sure, but it's a really beautiful deep blue. I loved it. That is the progress that I have on that so far. This test knit is going on for the next couple months, I believe. So I hope to give more updates soon and make more progress. It's been a beautiful dress. It's not as detailed as the Miletus dress because it's not made to fit. If you guys know about the Miletus dress or followed me along while I was making it, you know that it's supposed to be made, the Miletus dress that is, to zero ease for your body. The pattern is designed in a very specific way where you can tweak the sizes of your dress so that it fits you perfectly. This one is more designed in the traditional sense where it has set sizes. I think it has 16. And so you pick the one that's closest to you, and she has a few mods here and there to kind of tailor it a little bit more, but it's not as custom as the Miletus dress is. I do think the knitting experience will be slightly better because it's mostly in the round once you finish the bodice panel pieces. The Miletus dress is open in the front or the back because it's reversible. And in turn, it is pretty much all knit flat. So I'm excited to get into the skirt of this when it's just stock knit in the round. I'm excited to wear it this spring, and not the spring, sorry, this summer. I finished my Miletus dress in August last year, and right around that time we went to Japan, and by the time I got back it was fall time, so I didn't actually get to wear my Miletus dress that much. Hoping to wear that more, and then I think this test knit is ending a little bit earlier in the summer season, so I might be able to throw in a few days of wearing it as well. I don't know why I'm looking at my notes. I don't have notes for these ones. I hope I'm not forgetting anything important. If I am, I'll mention it in the next podcast episode. Not a big deal, especially as this dress and maybe the Matcha Jumper less so, but I've made that one before. But the dress is definitely going to be a longer term project. Obviously still on a deadline given that it is a test knit, but it's not as quick as like a top or tank top or all that stuff. So that's what's been going on in my knitting world recently. Like I noted earlier, I have some yarn that I could share, but I think I'll show them closer to when I'm actually starting to use them. So it's not just like a flash of here's a skein, here's a skein. But I've just been in a really good knitting mood still. Like I know I mentioned last time that knitting's been just such a joy, and it continues to be. I've been kind of pulled in different directions recently because of all of the spring stuff, as well as I think I'm moving into the room behind me eventually. We are officially painting it. It was a bright pink room before, and I finally painted it white, and we're doing stripes, or we're in the process of doing stripes. So eventually my filming setup will change. Stay tuned for that. I hope I'm not teasing this too early because it might not be for a very long time, but I'm really excited about that. But that's been taking up some of my time. But even then, I'm still enjoying at the end of the day, either when I finish work or having some time to myself before bed to just knit a couple rows. Knitting is just such a wonderful thing. I love it so much. And thank you so much for being very patient with as I've been doing other stuff, and just all the positive comments in the community here. You guys are wonderful, and I apologize for my breaks in between, but you guys are always so welcoming when I come back. So I just wanted to say thank you for being here. Without further ado, if you are not interested in the sewing stuff, feel free to end this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I will catch you guys in the next one as always. Otherwise, I have 3, I believe, finished objects to share, and 1 kind of work in progress update that's not really a work in progress anymore because it's on hold. We'll get into that. As you guys know, I have been, maybe you don't know actually. If you guys don't know, I started a sewing class at the beginning of April with my sister, and it was just kind of like a beginner sewing class. It was a very fluid one. The teacher, in the best way I explained, has like a kind of chaotic energy. She is very go with the flow, whatever her train of thought is, and she kind of teaches as she go. And I actually really enjoyed that experience. As someone who typically likes a little bit more structure, I had a wonderful time. And through that experience, I made a couple things. I think in my last podcast episode, I showed you my very first sewing project, which was earrings. They're hanging somewhere back there if you can spot them. I think in that episode, I also mentioned that I started a bucket hat. Now, I can't remember the exact status I was in at the time. I believe it was just in pieces, but it is done. This is the bucket hat that I made. I posted it on Instagram when I finished, and it's this two-toned bucket hat that I made for my husband. It is massive on me. My husband has a very large head, so this is what she looks like. It is a little floppy because at the time when I made it, I didn't know, well, I did know about interfacing, but I didn't think to use it. And so I just made it with cotton fabric. And honestly, I think it worked really well. The rim could have benefited from a little bit of interfacing to give it some stability. But overall, I think because the bucket hat shape, it's not too bad. It's a little floppy, but it still like stays out of your face when you're wearing it. And it made it very lightweight because it's cotton. Ryan wears it a bunch. It came in clutch in the summertime or the springtime as we've been outside a lot, so he's been wearing it a lot. It's got a little bit of dirt on it because he was wearing it outside today when we were doing gardening. Technically reversible, the opposite is on the other side where the like lighter color here. I'm not going to show you very closely because some of the ends are not perfect, but that's okay. It was a learning project and I had a really fun time. This project was based off a free tutorial from, I think the designer name, his name is Glory Allen is what I believe it is. It's either Alan Glory or Glory Allen, excuse me. And he's a Torontonian YouTuber here on YouTube. And he created a bucket hat and a bunch of other like free tutorials. So I followed it along. I didn't use the fabric that he recommended, which was canvas. I just used normal woven cotton and it worked out well in my opinion. So this is the bucket hat that I made. I bought way too much fabric for this because I didn't really know how you purchase fabric at the time. So I think I have a bunch of this fabric left over that I can make more bucket hats or other stuff with. In terms of the class, I made 2 finished objects that I'm incredibly proud of, and they're both buckets/bags. You saw one earlier, which is this one. It's holding my Matcha Jumper, and it's a bag. As you can see, I added a zipper and a little handle, and it's got a little cat tag on the edge there, if you can see that. And I adore it. I just picked out some fabric that the teacher had. She basically brought a whole bunch of fabrics that we could pick. It's green on the inside. I'm really happy with how it turned out. Fun fact, this was actually supposed to be more of a toiletry style bag, so like a box, but we cut the pattern out wrong based on the teacher gave us like a pattern template and she put the foldings like lines in the wrong spot. So my sister and I ended up pivoting and making it more of this like triangular with a rectangular base bag, heavily inspired by the other knitting bags that I have. This one here is one that I've purchased. This is from Yellow Petal Handmade, which is actually a Canadian brand based in Nova Scotia. The owner, Penelope, made this custom order to me almost 2 years ago now, actually. I ordered it when I was like just getting into my knitting life, if that's what I'm supposed to call it. So based off the mistake that we made in the original, we were like, okay, why don't we just change this to a flat base and it be more of like a knitting bag, which I actually think this structure fits better for knitting because you can just like rest it on the ground and then it's like open on the top here, whereas the toiletry bag has like less of an opening. It would have still worked, and that was my original plan to use it as a knitting bag anyways. This was kind of like a blessing in disguise. So I don't know what the fabric is. I don't know what any of this is. I just used what I had, and I am so thrilled with how this turned out. I believe a lot of this stuff is like vintage or older fabric because our teacher really loves like reclaiming fabrics and has a lot of old materials that she's gathered over the years that we're allowed to use. So I picked out this one because I think it suits me really well and it perfectly matches my Matcha Jumper. I think they go together so beautifully. So this is actually the last finished object that I made in the class. The one that I made before that was this little bucket that I actually posted on Instagram with no size reference. So everybody thought it was huge. It's actually tiny It's this little bag. It's a little bucket bag that you can roll down the top and have like a little bit of a splash of color. So mine's this beautiful kind of like floral print with like pink insides. Both of these kind of introduced us to folded bottoms, interfacing, top stitching, all those lovely things. And this one I use right now just to throw miscellaneous craft things on my desk. There's some needles, some stitch markers, and a seam ripper in here. So yeah, those are my 2 projects that I made over the course of the last, main projects I suppose. I have, like I said, done the earrings, and we, at the end of the class, got some fabric to make like napkins to learn miter corners, I believe is what they're called. But these are my 2 proudest projects. They're so cute. I think they match my personality so well. I love the colors that I've chose. I love the experience of it. This class actually has a second class that I missed the opportunity to register for. It's full by the time I considered it. So I might take the second class in the fall time when she hosts it again. If you guys are ever interested in trying a project, I definitely recommend looking at your community centers, because this project was done through a this class was done through a community center, so it was highly accessible, and I'm so thrilled at what we learned, albeit it was very focused on like accessories and the basics, and I believe the next class will be more focused on clothing and like more complicated techniques. That being said, I think I mentioned in the last episode that I wanted to make lane pants, and that is still true. Now, this is like a half work in progress because I actually printed all of the patterns and I cut them out. I have them all stashed away underneath my shelf on the floor over there that you guys can't see. And the reason why it's on hold is because the fabric that I wanted to use was fabric that my mom gave me, but I think it was like just ever so like not enough. And instead of cutting into that as my first like garment project, I was like, I probably should make a sample with some cheaper fabric. And so I've been waiting to go to the thrift store to like thrift some bed sheets or some cotton fabric that I can make like a sample with, because I don't want to sew up like this nice fabric that I have. So that's why it's on hold. I do still want to make the lane plants. I am really excited about that. I got really into taping the pattern together and cutting it out, and it was really therapeutic, as much as it was kind of annoying to try to find a space to lay out all of this fabric, because my office as is does not have enough floor space for that. So once I go to the thrift store and get some fabric, I will be very excited to start that back up. And then I also managed to pick up some linen fabric at my fabric store a couple weeks ago when they were having their birthday sale. That is currently in the wash, so I can't show you, but it's just basic plain black linen that I really want to make a jumpsuit with. So if you have any sewing jumpsuit recommendations, please leave them below. I want something a little bit like simpler and not too strappy, if that makes sense. But I'm open to hearing your suggestions. So yeah, that's all the crafty stuff that's been going on. I hope you guys have been having a wonderful crafty time. I know things have shifted a little bit in terms of like what I've been working on since I last talked about in my spring knitting plans. I know I mentioned that I was going to cast on my iris sweater relatively soon after the last podcast, and it never happened. Honestly, the only reason it didn't happen was because I was dragging my feet about making a swatch, and then I got excited about other projects. But I do eventually want to cast it on. I still think it's a beautiful sweater. I think I might work on it more in the wintertime next year so I can wear it for next spring, because something about spending that much time working on it now and not being able to wear it until next year just doesn't seem as fulfilling. And I know I'm doing that for the Matcha Jumper right now and Ryan's Fika pullover, but I don't know. Something about the color work not being like as fluid in terms of like my go-to like knitting style and being a little bit more high effort, that payoff isn't as nice or worth it in my opinion. So that will still come about eventually. I have all the yarn, so it's going to have to. I don't really know what I could do with all the colors even if I didn't. But yeah, I'm just rambling now. So that is all I have to share with you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching, especially if you stuck around until the end. I am so happy that the sun managed to like pull through. The sun is definitely setting. I can see it getting lower in the horizon. But thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps me with the algorithm. Let me know in the comments below, or feel free to DM me on Instagram if that's easier actually. about what you're working on. I love to hear from you. I know I say that in every episode, but I truly love seeing and learning about and keeping updated about the projects that you're working on. You guys are such a great community, and I'm so thankful to be here and have you guys. So yeah, I think I'll call it here. Thank you again, and I will talk to you guys in the next one. Bye for now.